The Northman is directed by Robert Eggers and stars Alexander Skarsgård, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Nicole Kidman. When a Viking king is murdered by his own kin, the young prince, now a man, must avenge his father, save his mother, and kill his traitorous uncle. Even though I've never seen Robert Eggers' 2017 debut film The Witch, I have seen his second film, the 2019 The Lighthouse, and in my opinion, that was one of the best movies of that year, and considering that I consider 2019 to be a pretty freaking fantastic year for film, that's saying a lot. So needless to say, I was pretty excited for The Northman, especially seeing as how the director himself was saying that this was going to be a bit more mainstream than his earlier works. So did the film, for me, live up to the heights that was his last film? In my opinion, even though I wouldn't say this is as good as The Lighthouse, this movie's pretty freaking awesome, not gonna lie. In my opinion, the best part about this film isn't necessarily the acting, even though we will get into the acting in a bit. I think the best part about this movie is the story. True, this isn't the most original story. I mean, throughout most of this film's marketing, I kept jokingly referring to it as Conan the Viking. I'm talking more about how the film carries its story. Even though it's a simple story, it feels epic. Whether it's Eggers' beautiful direction and cinematography, the accuracy and stoic nature of the dialogue, or the use of Norse mythology to help tell the tale, even though it's not original, it feels ancient enough to feel like this is where all of those types of stories started. It carries itself with the majesty of a myth. And even though this is a stoic and simple story, that doesn't mean the characters aren't three-dimensional and the acting isn't awesome. Everyone's great in the movie, including Anya Taylor-Joy, but in my opinion, the two obvious standouts are Nicole Kidman as the Queen and Alexander Skarsgård as the Forgotten Prince. Even though Kidman doesn't have much screen time and throughout most of the movie, even though I thought she was good, she wasn't really a standout. But at the beginning of the third act, she has one scene where she absolutely steals the show. And in just that one scene, she goes from delivering just a good performance to one of the best performances of her entire career. And as for Skarsgård himself, he really impressed me with his performance. I mean, I was just expecting him to be the stoic, grunting badass that a lot of these main character types in these stories are known for being. But around the time where Nicole Kidman truly becomes one of the best actors in this movie, so does Skarsgård in a way in how he interacts with her. And the way that he interacts with a lot of characters after this moment in a less grunting way and more of, well, still that badass, but a bit more emotionally vulnerable. It's an actually really good performance, and I wasn't expecting it to be as fantastic as it ended up being. The film was visually beautiful, the action was awesome, and the score was actually really freaking good and really freaking euphoric at times. I actually thought this movie was fantastic, but it's not for everyone. On the contrary to what Eggers has said about this movie, I don't think it's more mainstream than The Lighthouse or The Witch really is. Because as my dad pointed out when we both went to see this movie and I ended up loving it and he ended up hating it, he said that they took something as awesome as Vikings and turned it into something that was, and I quote, artsy-fartsy. Even though this film does have more action than The Witch or The Lighthouse, it's still a Robert Eggers film, and Robert Eggers, being more accustomed to indie filmmaking, still has all of the stamps of an independent film on there. And along with a couple nitpicks that I had along the way, my biggest issue for me personally was the relationship between Skarsgård and Anya Taylor-Joy's character. The two don't have the best chemistry in the movie, and while they are good in their own ways, and if they were to remain allies throughout the whole film and nothing more, I would have liked their dynamic a bit more. But then their relationship turns romantic, and I just didn't buy it. I didn't feel like they shared enough screen time together beforehand, and maybe this is where the stoic dialogue becomes a double-edged sword. Because even though it makes a lot of the dialogue sound more awesome, it doesn't sound very romantic. But if I'm being honest, that's my only personal big issue with the film. I loved this movie. I don't think the film is so mainstream that almost anyone can enjoy it, and I myself did have my issues with the romance in the film, but even then, I still enjoyed the film very much. The acting was great, the visuals were stunning, the action was awesome, the score was beautiful, and the tone made this simple story feel like the epic myth that it wants to carry itself as. It feels like this is an epic story, and it's an epic story about Norse mythology, which, how often do we get stories like that? A Norse mythology epic. I'm going to give the Northman an A. Well guys, thank you so much for watching, and let me know in the comments down below, what's your favorite of Robert Eggers' 3 films? The Witch, The Lighthouse, and The Northman. Even though I haven't seen The Witch, and I did really like The Northman, I still gotta go with The Lighthouse. It's still amazing. Willem Dafoe, man. Oh, Willem Dafoe, Willem. And Robert Pattinson, but Willem. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are the best, and don't forget to click subscribe and click the bell icon down below to stay up to date on all things movie, all things TV, all things nerd.